There's no way that Iran will ever agree to this 15-point plan. There's no way. US is in a very weak state economy-wise.
The world's most critical trade choke point, the Strait of Hormuz, has been closed since 4th of March 2026, carrying roughly 20% of global oil and LNG flows. Its disruption has triggered the largest energy shock since the 1970s.
Attention all ships, from now on, all navigating through the Strait of Hormuz is forbidden.
Markets have turned highly reactive, with geopolitical uncertainty feeding directly into inflation and growth expectations. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development now sees U.S. inflation rising to 4.2% in 2026, while the International Monetary Fund estimates that every 10% rise in energy prices could lift global inflation by nearly 40 basis points. In response, countries adopt varied strategies, from reserve drawdowns to alternative sourcing and emergency measures. On the 24th of March 2026, a proposed 15-point de-escalation plan put forward by the United States was firmly rejected by Iran, signaling that the standoff remains unresolved and prolonging uncertainty over global supply. With this, the whole world does not see the geopolitical tension cooling off anytime sooner, cascading into a broader global slowdown. In the middle of this economic catastrophe, is there still a safe stock market out there?
I actually became maximum bullish on China and the China stocks back in September 2024. That was about 2 weeks before the current rally started. So I didn't have any special inside news from Xi Jinping. It was based on hard analysis, deep analysis, and logically, the research that we do points to one simple conclusion. That's it. So what about now? What about with the current Middle East crisis? So this current crisis in the Middle East, the war is asymmetrical, as you probably have read. Israel and the US would use expensive Patriot missiles, THAAD defense system, and then Iran used the drone which cost $30,000 versus a $4 million interceptor. And the asymmetry is not just that, and the other asymmetry is geographical. I'll talk to you, I'll bring you to the Strait of Hormuz. So the question that we have to ask is the rise in oil and gas prices, how high, how long? Is a 15-point plan that is now being marketed by Trump the solution to it? What sort of disruption will it get worse in supply of oil and gas? Countries it's not just, you see headlines, petrol stations in Cambodia, Thailand, many of them are being running short of petrol. It's not just those two countries, it's the same thing in Australia. I think about 10% of Australian retail petrol stations have run out of petrol. So the disruption is getting more serious. Strategic oil piles, how helpful are these? And then in terms of final energy consumption, how important is the share of electricity? And what are the sources, what are the types of fuel that you use to generate your electricity? How big is Iran? 17th largest country in the world. And if you were to take California, Texas, Montana, and Illinois, combine them, they'll be the size of Iran. That's how big the country is. Population 91 million. So this is not your President Maduro of Venezuela. This is of a different scale, of a different type of conflict altogether. The Strait of Hormuz, over here, right? There are only a 6-mile channel that can be used for tankers. 2-mile lane in one direction, and then the other lane is also 2 miles with a buffer zone 2 miles separating the two. Is to wear the American military down in terms of stockpiles and so on and so forth, in terms of military resources, strategically, and more importantly, psychologically. There's another strait which Iran has at its disposal hasn't been used. This is the one. This is Yemen, Somalia. This is the Red Sea. This Egypt is here. Saudi Arabia is here. So this part here, this peninsula, the Mandeb, this very narrow as well. And the Houthis are the allies of Iran in Yemen. The Houthis are controlling, not say controlling, a major force in Yemen. So the Houthis can be placed anywhere here and then control the other choke point. The US troops were told by various people in the US military that the Iran war is for the return of Jesus. So they're seeing it as a religious war, as a war between Christians and Islam. Iran has warned that it can go up to $200. This is the West Texas, with the Rutia Texas intermediate price. It's from 1990. Now, the question is, how rise will this WTI rise to? I would want to pay attention to this because you're dealing with a lot of unpredictable factors. It spiked up 400%, $3 to $12 in just about a month or two, right? And then this 1990, just within a month, from about 17 to about 41. This is the Gulf War, 1990. In terms of the surge in oil price so far, post 2026 is closer to 1990. In terms of financial economic impact on the United States, 2026 this year is closer to the 1973 type of period. China, 2026 is a new development. It's only the national average. The petrol price in California has really hit $7-8. So watch this, right? Because that will be the trigger where Trump will really chicken out. That's the time when maybe you want to go in maximum bullish next. US is in a very weak state economy-wise. Total public debt, 120%, and this is during the so-called strong recovery period. If you're in a recession, like, fair enough, you use fiscal spending and public debt to boost the economy, but when good times come back, you have to bring it down, but they can't. So public debt in US as a percentage of GDP is extremely high. It's higher than World War II because of fiscal deficit partly. 2024, 6.4% of US GDP. 2025, despite the tariff revenue that Trump is so proud to boast of, fiscal deficit is almost nearly 6% of GDP. This is during good times. Projection of US, this is before the Iran crisis broke out. Based on more normal type assumptions, you can see the US budget deficit will continue forever. So, will he check it out? Has he checked it out? Or is he going for $200? He says that he has sent Iran a 15-point plan to end the war, right? And Trump says he's in negotiations now. But Iran says no, he's lying. So who's telling the truth? And even if it's true that they are really talking about 15 points, if you look at it in detail, if you read the 15 points, there's no way that Iran will ever agree to this 15-point plan. There's no way. What has happened? This is the oil inventory in China. They've been building up. This up to January. After that, they continue. They've been buying very aggressively. So at about 1.2, 1.3 billion barrels of oil, the Chinese oil stockpile is the largest in the world. In terms of LNG imports, China, this is front line, this import, this domestic production. China is the least vulnerable of the whole lot. And China has been preparing for climate change for a long time. In every 5-year plan that China has, it's always about talking about preparing for climate change. And that, coincidentally, has prepared China for this crisis, ironically. Although the preparations were mainly to deal with environmental and climate change. But the result of it is that China is well prepared for this energy crisis. Next. China installed more than half of all wind and solar added globally. Number of EV charging stations in China, this pretty up to date, 21 over million charging stations. Target 2027, 28 million. Guess how many you have in America? Take a guess. This is very important. The share of electricity in energy consumption. If you want to go to clean technology, you must move away from fossil fuel. You must move away from those type and move away more to electricity, which is based on clean sources. Right? You can see here. You can see the graph. This is renewable, coal, nuclear. 35, 37 years ago, 1 or 2 years ago. This is fossil fuel, including coal. China still has a lot of reliance on coal, and renewable has increased a lot. This part, because China has to do a transition, and wind and solar, there are certain challenges which takes time to overcome. So there will be times when you need coal to be your backup.